Carmichael, a student financial aid consultant with Leela, and I want to discuss with you this evening the student financial aid process. We all know that continuing your education after high school can greatly improve your earning potential. Because college can be expensive, you should be aware of and prepare for the costs of pursuing a post-secondary education. These costs include equipment, books and supplies, like textbooks, notebooks, a calculator, a personal computer. Personal expenses like your phone bill, laundry, fuel for your car, and food purchases outside of your meal plan. Room and board, which can include your dorm or apartment, electricity, water and gas, your groceries and cleaning supplies. Tuition and fees, which also include parking, library, technology, and athletic fees, and campus transportation. But the good news is that financial aid is available from the federal government, our state government, your college or career school, and nonprofit and private organizations. Every year, the federal government provides more than $120 billion in student financial aid, and quite a lot of it goes unawarded. So we just want to make sure that you're getting your portion. Types of federal student aid include the federal Pell Grant, the federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teacher Educational Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, Federal Work Study, and direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and PLUS loans. Federal student aid grants are a form of financial aid that does not have to be repaid. The federal grant family includes Pell Grants for undergraduates with financial need, FSEOGs for undergraduates with exceptional financial need, service grants for students of military parents who died defending the U.S. following 9/11, and teach grants for students pursuing a teaching career. The Federal Work Study Program provides part-time jobs to help pay for your education expenses. So when you tell the financial aid office that you're interested in federal work study, you'll be considered for this program. Your earnings will be paid to you directly and should be used to pay your college expenses. Direct subsidized loans are based on financial need, and no interest is charged until you graduate or cease to attend. Almost everyone is eligible for direct unsubsidized loans, regardless of financial need. However, the interest begins to accrue on these loans once fully dispersed and then throughout the life of the loan. So you see there's a big difference between direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Always accept the subsidized loans before the unsubsidized, because the U in unsubsidized means you always pay the interest. If offered loans, accept the federal student loans first, because payments are not due until you graduate or cease to attend. The interest rate is fixed at a lower rate, and no credit check is required. Private loans should be accepted only as needed, because most require payments be made while you're still in school. The interest rate might be variable, and often it's much higher, and they almost always require a cosigner. Students and families should do their research before selecting a private lender, as interest rates and incentives to borrow will vary. To dispel the myth, almost everyone is eligible for some type of federal student aid. All federal student aid and most institutional and private aid is contingent upon completion of the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, which launches tomorrow, October 1st, and must be renewed every year that you're going to be in college. Remember that student financial aid is offered on a first come, first served basis, so you want to submit your FAFSA as soon as possible. Remember to pay close attention to and meet the FAFSA deadlines that are set forth by your college, state government, and federal student aid. Begin the FAFSA process by collecting all of the documents needed to complete the form. These include student and parents' social security cards, because the FSA ID and FAFSA must reflect the names and numbers exactly as printed on your most recent card, even if your name has changed. 2019 federal income tax returns, because to use the IRS data retrieval tool, you must enter your name and address exactly as printed on the tax return, even if your name is misspelled on the return or you've moved since you filed it. If you don't have a copy of your tax return, contact your tax preparer for a duplicate copy or request a tax transcript from the IRS. W-2s, because there's information on this form that may not be found on the federal tax return. And bank statements and records of investments, because you must report the balances of these accounts as of the date that you submit the FAFSA. Begin by creating the Federal Student Aid ID, or the FSA ID, because it allows students and parents to identify themselves electronically when accessing federal student aid websites, such as the FAFSA. The FSA ID consists of a unique username and password that's created by you, and it should reflect only your personal information. Each student and one parent should create an ID by visiting fsaid.ed.gov. Only your email address and phone number should be listed in your FSA ID. And quite often a student will use a parent's mobile phone number as his alternate number, and vice versa. This is considered shared information. It's going to cause you trouble signing your FAFSA electronically. So if you don't have an alternate phone number, you can leave that field blank. Download the FAFSA mobile app, My Student Aid, to submit your FAFSA on your mobile phone or other device if you don't have access to a computer. Or complete the FAFSA using the web-based version at fafsa.gov. Begin the FAFSA by logging in with the student's FSA ID, because the FAFSA is the student application for federal student aid. The parent FSA ID will be used to transfer tax information into the FAFSA and to sign the student's FAFSA. The high school class of 2021 should be completing the 2021-2022 FAFSA, because that's the academic year that you're applying for financial aid. There are 8 sections that should be completed before submitting your FAFSA: the student demographics, school selection, dependency status, parent demographics, parent financials, and student financials. Then it's time to sign and submit and review your confirmation page. As you move through the FAFSA, if you need clarification on a question, click that question mark to the right of the question or select the hyperlink that's provided. You can request a FAFSA online chat. You can call Federal Student Aid or Leela's FAFSA helpline for assistance. But for this session, I'll cover the most important, commonly asked FAFSA questions. If you have one that I don't address, just drop your question or concern in the Zoom chat box below, and I will answer it at the end of the presentation. Or if you wish, you can email me and I'll respond to you individually. Let's talk about the citizenship requirement. The student must be a citizen or eligible non-citizen to complete a FAFSA. However, If his parents are neither, they will enter zeros anywhere a Social Security number is requested. In these situations, the student should complete the FAFSA, print a signature page, submit the FAFSA electronically, sign the signature page, and mail it to Federal Student Aid at the address provided. Then it will be manually matched with the electronically submitted FAFSA and marked complete. Only the colleges that you list on the FAFSA will consider you for student financial aid. So add all of the schools that you're considering, up to 10 at a time. And if you're applying to more than 10 colleges, you'll want to follow the instructions that are provided in this section. To determine your dependency status, you'll be asked to consider 10 questions. Will you be 24 or older by January 1 of the school year for which you are applying for financial aid? Are you married or separated but not divorced? Will you be working on a graduate degree? And often a student will answer yes to this question because they know they're going to be a high school graduate, but this question is actually referring to college graduate programs. Do you have children who receive more than half of their support from you? And you will be asked by the College Financial Aid Office to provide receipts to verify your support. Do you have dependents other than children or a spouse who live with you and receive more than half of their support from you, perhaps a relative or a family friend? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? So this excludes boot camp and basic training. Are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? At any time since you turned 13, were both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you a ward or dependent of the court? Are you an emancipated minor, or are you in legal guardianship as determined by a court? Legal custody is not always considered legal guardianship, so you need to review your documentation before answering this question. Are you an unaccompanied youth who is homeless, or are you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? So if your school district has identified you, request and retain a copy of that documentation before you graduate, because the financial aid office will ask you for that. If you can answer yes to just one of these questions and provide a legal document supporting your claim, then you're considered an independent student for FAFSA purposes and will not be required to provide parental information. Unfortunately, for FAFSA purposes, you're not an independent student just because you file your own taxes or you live alone and support yourself. Who is my parent when I fill out the FAFSA? This is the number one question that we're asked. The parent or parents that you've lived with the longest in the past 12 months should be listed on your FAFSA. So if you live with both of your biological parents, list them. If the parent you lived with the longest in the past 12 months is separated, divorced, or was never married, you should list that parent on the FAFSA. However, if that parent is remarried, you should include his or her spouse. In other words, Federal Student Aid wants to know the financial standing of the household that the student has lived the longest in the 12 months prior to the date the FAFSA was submitted. If you're identified as a dependent student, but your parents will not provide their information on your FAFSA, simply answer, I am unable to provide information about my parents, state that you do not have a special circumstance, and submit your FAFSA without parental information. Next, contact your college's financial aid office to discuss your situation. If not, you'll only be considered for student loans. It's important to know that the college financial aid office will determine your aid offer, not federal student aid, so be sure you're communicating with them about your circumstance. To expedite the process of your federal student aid, the student and parents should use the IRS data retrieval tool to provide income information. If either the parent or student did not file a return for the 2019 tax year, they should select not going to file or will file and enter their income information manually. If you did not earn any working wages in 2019, enter zeros in the income fields. Using the IRS data retrieval tool can diminish your chances of being selected for verification. So if you're having trouble using this tool, contact Federal Student Aid or call Leela's FAFSA helpline for assistance. Using the 2019 federal income tax return, enter your name and address exactly as printed on your return, even if it's misspelled or you've moved since you filed. Before submitting your FAFSA, it's important to review your student aid report. This report reflects each question that you were asked and your answer to it. A review of this report ensures that the financial aid office receives accurate information so your aid can be processed timely. The student and one parent should sign the FAFSA using their FSA IDs. If you submit your FAFSA without signatures, it will be marked incomplete. Then you'll begin to hear from Federal Student Aid asking you to sign your FAFSA and resubmit it. Review your FAFSA confirmation page once your FAFSA has been submitted. You'll find out the next steps that you should take to complete the student financial aid process. You'll see a list of the colleges that will receive your FAFSA data. You'll find out your estimated expected family contribution and your financial aid estimates. And remember, these are estimates. Each college financial aid office will determine your aid on their campus. Once your FAFSA is fully processed, it's shared with the colleges listed. Then each college financial aid office will begin to identify any aid that you might be eligible to receive. If your family's financial situation has changed since 2019, contact each college financial aid office because they have the ability to adjust your aid by using their own professional judgment. Your net price will be determined by each financial aid office by subtracting any grants and scholarships that you're eligible to receive from your cost of attendance. The net price can be paid in cash or by accepting student loans to pay the balance. Your student financial aid offer should reflect the college's cost of attendance, list any grants, scholarship, work study, and student loans that you've been offered. So read this offer carefully and respond to any requests so that your aid can be processed. Remember, you're going to receive a separate financial aid offer from each of the schools that you've listed on your FAFSA. Accept your financial aid in this order: scholarships and grants. These are gifts that don't have to be repaid. Federal work study. This is earned money that does not have to be paid back. And then loans, because this is borrowed money that has to be repaid with interest. Leela's FAFSA completion guide and workbook for the class of 2021 is a free resource for Louisiana high school seniors. Request your copy by emailing me at carmichael@leela.org. Use Leela's senior checklist to stay on track this year. I'll include this guide, this form with your guide. And most importantly, scholarships. These are gifts that do not have to be repaid. There are thousands of them offered by schools, employers, individuals, private companies, nonprofits, community organizations, religious groups, and professional and social organizations. Some scholarships are merit-based and awarded based on academic achievement or on a combination of academics and a special talent, trait, or interest. Others are based on financial need. A scholarship might cover the entire cost of your tuition, or it might be a one-time award of a few $100s. Either way, it's worth applying for because it will reduce the cost of your education. This year, Leela is offering 2 scholarship opportunities: a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship for seniors attending a Louisiana high school, and a $1,000 Choose Louisiana scholarship for students attending a Louisiana college. You can find out the details of those scholarships at askleela.org. For students or parents who need help after factoring in all scholarships, grants, federal and state dollars, consider Leela Choice, Leela's nonprofit education loan program. Your questions are always welcomed. And now is the time, so use your chat box in Zoom if you have any, and I'll answer them in the time we have remaining. If you'd prefer, you can always call our FAFSA helpline after the presentation, or you can email me directly requesting your guide and senior checklist or with your questions. Let me check our chat box. Ms. Nistro is saying that she has posted the FAFSA completion guide and workbook on the Google Classroom. This is a great tool to help use to help you complete your FAFSA. Thanks, Ms. Nistro. We always enjoy publishing that each year. Now I have another question. If I live with both parents separately, but stay with them an equal time, who would I put on the form? And this is a very commonly asked question. And the financial aid office is going to be really technical about this. So if your parents are not married, say they're separated or they're divorced or have never been married, but they have joint custody of you, and you're not quite sure how to answer that question, the financial aid office is going to ask you down to the day who you spent the most time with. And if it's down to the minute you are sure that you spent equal amounts of time with them, then you are going to be asked to provide financial documents from both of those parents, not on your FAFSA, but to the financial aid office directly. So right now, when you're completing your FAFSA, do your best to select that parent that you feel like you've spent the most time with. Use that parent's information on your FAFSA, but be prepared later to provide your other parents' info as well. I hope that was helpful. Our next question, if I don't live with either of my parents or a legal guardian, would I put my birth parents? So if you are not living with either of your parents and you don't have a legal guardian, my next question would be, who are you living with? Is it a friend? Is it another family member? Can you drop that in the chat box? Do you feel comfortable doing that? You live, okay. If you live with someone else that's not a relative, I know it's getting personal. If you don't live with that person and that person is not your legal guardian, you're not going to be able to use that person's financial information. So you're right. You are going to have to go back to your parents' information. Now, if your biological parents are married, you'll need income information from both of them. If they are not married, then you will select one of those parents and provide that birth parent's information on your FAFSA. Now, if you had been in legal guardianship, you would be considered an independent student and you would not have to provide any parental information. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to give it another couple of 30 seconds or so to see if we have another question. I hope that each of you will get your FAFSAs done as soon as possible. If you need some assistance, give us a call. We're happy to help. And then apply for that $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship that's offered through LELA, because it may not seem like it, but $1,000 will go quite a long way. All right, Ms. Nistro, thank you so much for inviting me to present, and I look forward to hearing from each of you.